When my husband passed away, the house became too quiet. For 32 years, it had been filled with laughter, arguments over what to watch on television, the smell of his strong morning coffee, and the steady rhythm of a life built together. Then one hospital call changed everything. After the funeral, people visited for a while. They brought casseroles and soft voices and promises to check in soon. But eventually the door stopped ringing. That was when Daniel called. "Mom," he said gently, "Claire and I are having a hard time. Rent keeps going up. We're barely managing." I didn't even let him finish. "Come home," I told him, and I meant it. The first few weeks felt wonderful. The house breathed again. There were footsteps in the hallway. Claire laughed loudly when she talked on the phone. My little granddaughter Emma toddled through the living room, her tiny socks sliding across the hardwood floors her grandfather had polished every Sunday. I cooked the meals. I didn't mind. Cooking had always been my love language. I made Daniel's favorite pot roast, the one he used to ask for on his birthdays. I baked apple pie the way Claire once said reminded her of her own mother. I woke early to pack Daniel's lunches, just like I had when he was in school. They insisted it would only be for a year, maybe 2. They were saving for a house. They wanted to be responsible. I believed them. At first, they offered to contribute, but "this month is tight" turned into "we'll catch up soon." The electricity bill rose. The water bill doubled. Groceries disappeared faster than ever. My pension stretched thin, but I said nothing. A mother doesn't keep score. Instead, I told myself I was lucky. Some widows sit alone in silence. I had family under my roof. But slowly, something shifted. Claire began rearranging things without asking. The curtains I had sewn myself were replaced because they were too old-fashioned. My husband's recliner was moved into the basement because it didn't match the aesthetic. I swallowed my discomfort. It was just furniture, I told myself. Daniel started coming home later. At dinner, he scrolled through his phone instead of talking. When I asked about his day, he gave short answers, like I was an obligation rather than someone who had once kissed scraped knees and stayed up through fevers. Sometimes, late at night, I heard them whispering. "If we just had more space," Claire would say. "It's temporary," Daniel would reply. "Eventually, this place will be ours anyway." Ours. The word lingered in my chest long after the house fell quiet. I began noticing small things. Claire correcting me in front of Emma. Daniel sighing when I reminded him to lock the door. The way they spoke about renovations as if I were already gone. Still, every morning I woke up and chose kindness. I folded their laundry. I babysat Emma so they could have a break. I dipped into my savings when Daniel said his car needed repairs. I convinced myself that stress changes people, that once they were stable again, the warmth would return. On Emma's 4th birthday, I decorated the entire backyard with pink balloons. Claire thanked me, but it felt rehearsed. Daniel barely hugged me. That night, as I washed dishes alone, I caught my reflection in the dark kitchen window. I looked smaller somehow, quieter. But when Emma padded in wearing her pajamas and wrapped her little arms around my leg, whispering, "Grandma, I love living here," my heart filled again. 5 years passed that way. 5 years of giving. 5 years of convincing myself that love meant endurance. I didn't know then that generosity without boundaries can slowly erase you, and I certainly didn't know that the greatest test of my life was still waiting at the door, disguised as a miracle. It was an ordinary Tuesday morning, the kind that begins without warning and ends with everything changed. I was standing at the stove stirring oatmeal when the front door slammed so hard the picture frames rattled. Daniel burst into the kitchen, breathless, his face pale but glowing with something I hadn't seen in years: excitement. "Mom! Mom, where's Claire?" he shouted. Before I could answer, Claire came running down the stairs, her hair still half brushed. Daniel was holding a small slip of paper in his trembling hand. "We won," he said, his voice cracking. "We actually won." Claire laughed at first, like it was a joke. Then she saw his expression. "Stop it," she whispered. "Stop playing." "I'm not playing," he said, thrusting the ticket toward her. 75 million. The spoon slipped from my hand and clattered against the stove. Claire began screaming, not a frightened scream, a wild, joyful one. She grabbed Daniel, and they jumped up and down in the middle of my kitchen, knocking into the table, nearly tipping over a chair. Emma, still in her pajamas, stood in the hallway rubbing her eyes, confused by the noise. I didn't understand at first. "What do you mean, you won?" I asked softly. "The lottery, Mom," Daniel said. "The numbers, they all matched, every single one." Claire snatched her phone and started dialing someone. Within minutes, she was crying into it. "We're rich," she kept repeating. "We're actually rich." The air in the house changed instantly. It felt electric, charged with possibility. Daniel began pacing, talking about taxes, lump sums, financial advisors. Claire was already scrolling through real estate listings, her fingers flying across the screen. "Do you know what this means?" she said, eyes wide. "No more struggling, no more budgeting every penny. We're free." I forced a smile. "That's wonderful," I said, and part of me truly meant it. I had watched them struggle for years. Maybe this was the blessing they needed. By noon, the news had spread. I don't even know how. Maybe Claire posted it. Maybe Daniel told a friend. Reporters began calling. One van parked outside by mid-afternoon. Neighbors peeked through curtains. They stood on the front lawn holding hands, telling cameras about hard work and perseverance, about how this win would change everything. They looked like a united team, a young couple on the brink of a glamorous new life. No one mentioned the house. Inside, while they gave interviews, I cleared the breakfast dishes alone. By evening, the excitement had turned into something sharper. Claire walked through the living room slowly, her gaze sweeping over the walls, the old wooden cabinets, the carpet that had faded over decades of family gatherings. "This place is so small," she murmured. Daniel nodded absent-mindedly. "We'll need something bigger, modern." Claire began listing ideas out loud: a mansion with a gated driveway, a designer kitchen, private schools for Emma, European vacations. She said it all as if it were already decided. I sat in my armchair, listening. The same armchair where I had rocked Daniel as a baby. The same one my husband used to tease me about because I refused to replace it. Claire suddenly turned toward me, her expression polite but distant. "Well," she said slowly, "this house won't really fit our new lifestyle." The words were light, almost casual, but they carried weight. Daniel didn't object. He didn't reassure me. He didn't say, "Mom will always have her place here." Instead, he just stared at his phone, already calculating a future that seemed to stretch far beyond these walls. I felt it then, not joy, not pride, but something colder. Money hadn't arrived yet. The check hadn't even been issued, but already the foundation of this house, my house, felt like it was shifting beneath my feet. And for the first time in 5 years, I realized that this miracle might not be mine to celebrate. That evening, after the reporters left and the house grew quiet again, I thought perhaps the excitement would settle. I believed that once the noise faded, we would sit together at the table like a family and talk calmly about what came next. I was wrong. Claire didn't sit. She didn't relax. Instead, she moved with sharp purpose, her heels clicking against the hardwood floors as she paced the living room. Daniel followed behind her, silent, distracted, checking his phone every few minutes as if the money might disappear if he didn't watch it closely. I folded Emma's small sweater and placed it neatly on the couch. The ordinary motion steadied my hands. Claire stopped in front of me. "I've been thinking," she began, her voice carefully measured. "With everything changing, we need to make practical decisions." "Of course," I said gently. "It's a big adjustment." She nodded, but her eyes were distant. "Exactly. And this house." She glanced around as if seeing it for the first time. "It's not really suitable anymore." A quiet settled between us. Daniel cleared his throat but didn't look at me. Claire continued. "We're going to need space, privacy, a fresh start. I waited for the part where she said, "We'll make sure you're comfortable." I waited for Daniel to add, "Mom, you'll always have a home with us." Those words never came. Instead, Claire walked to the coffee table and picked up a thin stack of brochures I hadn't noticed before. She handed them to me with a polite smile. "I took the liberty of looking at some very nice nursing homes," she said. "They have activities, medical staff, other people your age. You wouldn't be alone." For a moment, I didn't understand what she was saying. The sentence felt misplaced, like it belonged in someone else's story. "Nursing homes?" I repeated softly. Daniel finally spoke, though his voice was barely above a whisper. "Mom, it might be better for everyone." The room felt smaller than it ever had before. "I live here," I said quietly. "This is my home." Claire's expression tightened, as if I were being unreasonable. "Technically, yes, but things are different now. We can afford something better, and honestly, it's time. Time." The word echoed in my ears. 5 years under my roof. 5 years of shared meals and unpaid bills. 5 years of babysitting, of late-night talks when their marriage was strained, of covering expenses when money ran thin. And now, suddenly, it was time. Claire crossed her arms. "We're planning to meet with a realtor tomorrow. It would be easier if you could start packing by Friday." "Friday?" I looked at Daniel. "That's 3 days." He avoided my eyes. "It's just practical, Mom. The sooner we move forward, the better." I studied my son's face, searching for the little boy who used to cling to my hand on his first day of school. I searched for the young man who cried when his father passed away and told me he didn't know how to live without us, but the man standing before me seemed like a stranger. Emma's laughter drifted faintly from upstairs, unaware that her world was shifting too. I felt something inside me break. Not loudly, not dramatically. Just a quiet fracture in a place that had endured too much already. Claire gestured toward the brochures still in my hand. "These places are very nice. You'll have company. It's not like we're abandoning you." Not abandoning. Just relocating. Just removing. Just making space. I looked around the living room, at the family photos, at the curtains I had sewn, at the worn wooden floor that carried decades of memories. My husband's laughter seemed to linger in the walls. My son's childhood footsteps echoed faintly in my mind. And now I was being asked to leave it all behind. I stood slowly, smoothing my cardigan, though my hands trembled. Daniel still wouldn't meet my eyes. That was when I felt something unexpected rise inside me. Not anger, not tears. Clarity. I allowed a small smile to form on my lips, and in a calm, steady voice I asked, "Dear, did you check the name on the ticket?" For a second, neither of them moved. Claire blinked at me as if I had spoken in another language. "What do you mean?" she asked, her confidence faltering just slightly. Daniel frowned. "Mom, what are you talking about?" I kept my smile gentle, almost affectionate. "The ticket," I repeated softly. "Did you check the name on it?" Daniel let out a short, nervous laugh. "Of course I did. I bought it." "Did you?" I asked. The room felt very still. Claire turned to him. "Daniel?" He hesitated, then reached for the lottery ticket that was still lying on the kitchen counter, placed carefully under a glass paperweight like it was already a priceless artifact. His fingers trembled just a little as he picked it up. "I bought it at the corner store," he said defensively. "With cash." "With cash?" I echoed. "The cash I gave you that morning to buy groceries." His eyes flickered. It had been such a small thing at the time. He'd come into the kitchen saying they were short until payday. I'd opened my purse without hesitation and handed him the money. Later, he came back laughing, saying he'd grabbed a lottery ticket on a whim and asked me to hold on to it for luck while he ran upstairs to help Claire with something. "I don't want to lose it," he'd said. "Can you sign the back so it's safe?" So I had. I signed my name carefully, the same way I sign every official document. I didn't think twice about it. It was just a habit, protecting something that belonged to my son. Now Daniel flipped the ticket over. The color drained from his face. Claire stepped closer. "What is it?" He didn't answer, because written clearly across the back of the ticket in blue ink was my name. Not his. Not theirs. Mine. Claire snatched it from his hand, staring at the signature as if it might magically change. "This doesn't mean anything," she said quickly. "It's just a signature." Daniel swallowed. "Actually, it does." They both knew the rules. The lottery office had already explained the importance of signing the ticket. The name on the back established ownership. It protected the winner. Protected. I folded my hands calmly in front of me. "You asked me to sign it," I said gently. "You said it would be safer." The silence that followed was heavier than any argument. Claire's confident posture crumbled. "But we chose the numbers," she whispered, as if that somehow overruled ink and law. "And I paid for it," I replied, not unkindly. Daniel ran a hand through his hair, pacing now the way Claire had earlier. "We can fix this," he muttered. "We'll just explain—" "To whom?" I asked softly. "The Lottery Commission?" The truth settled over them slowly, like a storm cloud they hadn't seen forming. I wasn't angry. That was the strangest part. I felt steady, grounded, as if for the first time in years I was standing firmly inside my own life instead of tiptoeing around theirs. Claire looked at me, her eyes wide with disbelief. "You wouldn't," she said. "Wouldn't what? Claim what was legally mine? Protect myself after being handed nursing home brochures in my own living room?" I stepped closer, my voice still calm. "I would never throw you out," I said. "I would never treat you the way you just treated me." Daniel finally looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw shame flicker across his face. "But this house," I continued, glancing around at the walls that had sheltered us all, "is mine, and so is that ticket." The power in the room had shifted completely. 5 minutes earlier, I had been the woman they were ready to relocate. Now, I was the one holding the future. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't threaten. I simply stood there, steady and composed, while the weight of their own choices settled onto their shoulders. And in that quiet moment, I understood something deeply. The sweetest revenge isn't cruelty. It's dignity.